Hello and welcome to today's lesson all about prefixes. We're going to look at different prefixes, so hopefully you'll be able to state them by the end, and also have a look at how we convert between prefixes. As ever, you'll need a bit of paper, pen, pencil, ruler and rubber. You'll definitely need a calculator for this video. And finally, we need to make sure your brain is switched on. So let's get started. So what do you already know about prefixes? So draw 6 blank boxes and write down what you can remember about this topic so far. To get you started, here is one from me. So I know that there's 100 centimetres in 1 metre. So think about other ones that you already know, and when you're ready, press play to continue. Okay, hopefully you've given that a go. So other ones from me, and you may have got them or you may have got different ones. So again, I know there's 1,000 metres in 1 kilometre. I know that 1 centimetre is made up of 10 millimetres, 1,000 grams in 1 kilogram. I've seen that symbol before, a funny shaped U, and that's actually called micro. And the other thing to remember is, like with when you've looked at units and standard units, there's also standard prefixes in physics and science, and it's a common language that we all use. So that we're clear, a prefix is something that you put in front of a unit. So rather than writing metres, I write K, so for kilometre. Rather than writing metres here, I put a C for centi or centimetres. And likewise here, rather than metres, I've used a M for millimetres. So the prefix is the milli, the kilo, the centi, etc. And as ever, why should I care? Well, again, it's about making your life easier. If you know all the different prefixes, then you're going to be able to move between different units far easier than someone that can't. So let's go through the common prefixes. So we've got tera, or that's capital T, giga, capital G, mega, capital M, kilo is a little k, deci, little d, centi, little c, milli, little m, micro, that funny shaped U, and nano is a little n. So what do you already know? So write down those in a list, and next to it, write down what they are. So I'll start us off. Kilo, so I'll start with the easy one. So that is 1,000. So see what you already know, and when you're ready, press play to continue. So here are the answers in full. And as you can see, there's a slight pattern to them, but it's not necessarily something that you're going to easily be able to remember. So with kilo, well, we tend to use a word for that, and that will be 1,000. And likewise for mega, well, that's million. So there's a few that we do use commonly, and they then have a meaning by how many noughts that they represent. So a more common way of seeing prefixes is 10 to the power of. So we know that kilo is 1,000. Well, in a calculator, that's the same as doing 10 to the power of 3. Mega, a million, that's 10 to the power of 6. Giga times 10 to the power of 9, etc. Milli is 1,000th, so multiply that by 1,000, and that turns into a 1. So we give that 10 to the minus 3, and micro times 10 to the minus 6. Nano, I always think nano 9, so 10 to the power of minus 9, a very small number. So sometimes it's just more easy to remember them in terms of the power rather than remembering the decimal value. So before we look at some examples, let's just remind ourselves. So prefixes, that's a shorthand way of writing different values, if you like. So quantities come in very huge values and some very small values, with a big range of sizes. So we use the prefix to make the number more manageable, so it just looks a little bit nicer. So our first example would be turning joules into kilojoules. So let's just have a look at some examples. So I'm writing 1,000 joules, and then that's equal to 1 kilojoule. It just makes it easier to write. So 1,200 joules, that's just going to be 1.2 kilojoules. And all I'm doing is dividing through by 1,000 because 1 kilo is worth 1,000 based on the previous slide. So then 1,250 joules is the same as 1.25 kilojoules. And then finally 2,490 joules equals 2.49 kilojoules. So now if we take mass and turning from kilograms to grams or vice versa. So 1 kilogram, kilo means 1,000. So 1 kilogram is 1,000 grams. So 2 kilograms is 2,000 grams. So then 200 grams is 0.2 kilograms, doing it in reverse. So all I'm doing here, when I'm going from kilograms to grams, I'm multiplying by 1,000. But when I'm going from grams to kilograms, I'm dividing through by 1,000. So because we're always talking about a K, so kilo, we're always referring to 1,000. And because I know that 1,000 grams equals 1 kilogram, I know that if I'm wanting to turn 200 grams into kilograms, the number is going to be smaller. So I'm going to divide through by 1,000. And conversely, if I'm trying to turn from kilograms into grams, I know that I need more grams, so the number is going to get larger. So looking at other units rather than kilo, although we could use kilometres, but let's look at metres into millimetres. So even after practice, I still like to start from the basics, knowing what I know. So I know on this topic that 1 centimetre equals 10 millimetres. So 10 centimetres must therefore equal 100 millimetres. And then 100 centimetres must then equal 1,000 millimetres. But then another word for 100 centimetres is 1 metre. So then if we had 2 metres, that would make sense for it to be 2,000 millimetres. And if we had 2.5 metres, then that's just 2,500 millimetres. So similar with kilo, and that's why we can cause some confusion, then here we are also multiplying by 100, or if we're going from millimetres to metres, we're dividing through by 100. So by setting it out like this, this is yet another way that you can try and work out how to convert if you need to. So joules and megajoules. 1 joule is actually a really small amount of energy. So we do tend to use kilojoules, and that's what you see on the back of, say, a crisp packet, or we also can use megajoules. So let's look at some examples. So we'll start with what we mean by 1 megajoule. Well, from previously we've mentioned mega means million, so that's 1 followed by 6 noughts times 10 to the 6. So 2 megajoules would then be 2 followed by 6 noughts, so 2 million joules, or 2 megajoules. So 3.6 megajoules would be 3 and then 6, 0, 0, 0, 0. And if you look how I set it out, you can see a little bit clearer that mega is referring to the number of numbers. So 500,000 joules is then just half of a megajoule, or 0.5 megajoules, and also 752,000 joules, again 0.752 megajoules. So if we just go over what I've done, so to turn from megajoules to joules, I've multiplied by 1 million. And to turn from joules to megajoules, I've divided by 1 million. So again, it's a case of thinking, is the number going to get bigger or is it going to get smaller? So the final example I'll go through now is to convert from kilometres per hour into metres per second. Now we're starting here from non-standard SI units of kilometres and hours, and we're turning into standard units of metres and seconds. That's why it's really important to be able to understand what's meant by prefixes, but also we need to think about how many seconds are in an hour. So let's go through how to do it. Let's assume the question is asking us to turn 2 kilometres per hour into metres per second. So the first step would be to change kilometres into metres. So we know that 2 kilometres equals 2,000 metres. So what we've now got is 2,000 metres travelled per hour, rather than saying 2 kilometres per hour. So now we need to convert hours into seconds. So we know that there's 60 seconds in 1 minute, and we also know that there are 60 minutes in 1 hour. So 60 minutes must therefore be 60 seconds times 60 minutes, which gives us 3,600 seconds every hour. So now we've got 2,000 metres per hour, or 2,000 metres per 3,600 seconds. So the final step is to do 2,000 metres divided by 3,600 seconds, and that then gives us 0.556 metres per second. So 2 kilometres per hour is also the same as 0.556 metres per second. So I always ask you to review what you've learned from the video. So again, draw your 6 boxes. I've written the first one for you. You must learn your prefixes and then be able to turn from one prefix into another. So there's 5 other spaces for you to do, and any questions, please get back to me.